The empty corridors of Space Station Harmony 7 echoed with the soft hum of dying systems. Dr. Elena Rodriguez walked slowly through the abandoned research facility, her footsteps the only sound breaking the silence that had settled over the station like a heavy blanket. The year was 2387, and humanity had built bigger and better stations among the stars, leaving this old orbital platform to fade into memory. Elena carried her scanning equipment through the main corridor, checking radiation levels and atmospheric readings one final time before the station would be completely shut down. She had volunteered for this last inspection because Harmony 7 held special meaning for her. 20 years ago, as a young student, she had conducted her first research project here, studying how music affected the human brain in zero-gravity conditions. The station still felt alive to her, even though most of its sections had been sealed off months ago. The artificial gravity generators hummed at minimum power, just enough to keep her feet on the floor. Emergency lighting cast long shadows on the walls, making the familiar hallways seem strange and dreamlike. Elena paused outside, the entrance to the old concert hall. The double doors stood slightly open, which was odd because she remembered them being sealed during the evacuation. She pushed them apart and stepped inside, her breath catching in her throat at what she saw. The concert hall had been the pride of Harmony 7 during its active years. The rounded chamber could hold 200 people, with curved walls designed to create perfect acoustics. Musicians from across human space had performed here, and the recordings of those concerts had been broadcast to colonies light years away. Now the space sat empty with dust covering the small stage and the rows of seats. But something was different. Elena noticed a faint shimmer in the air near the center of the hall, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. She set down her equipment and walked closer, pulling out her handheld scanner. The readings made her frown. The quantum field measurements were completely wrong for an empty room. She spent the next hour taking readings from different spots in the hall. Each measurement showed the same impossible result. The quantum field here was incredibly active, almost as if the room was full of people having intense emotional experiences. But the hall was empty, and had been empty for months. Elena was so focused on her work that she did not hear the footsteps in the corridor outside. She jumped when a man's voice spoke behind her. "Finding anything interesting in here?" She turned to see a tall man in engineer coveralls standing in the doorway. His name tag read Jake Morrison, and she recognized him as the station's shutdown supervisor. He had been in charge of the final evacuation and was now responsible for preparing Harmony 7 for its last journey into the sun. "I am getting some very strange readings," Elena said, holding up her scanner. "The quantum field in this room is showing massive activity, but there is nothing here that should cause it." Jake walked into the hall, his boots making soft sounds on the dusty floor. He looked around at the empty seats and the dark stage. This place always felt special when it was active. Some of the best musicians in human space played here. The acoustics were amazing. "It is more than just acoustics," Elena said, studying her scanner again. "Look at these numbers. The quantum field here is storing and replaying emotional imprints. Every strong feeling that ever happened in this room has left a mark that I can still detect." Jake raised an eyebrow. "You mean like ghosts?" "Not ghosts exactly, more like echoes. Human emotions create tiny disturbances in the quantum field, and this room's unique acoustic design seems to have preserved those disturbances. It is as if the walls remember every performance, every moment of joy or sadness that happened here." As Elena spoke, she noticed something else on her scanner. A new reading was appearing, different from the background emotional echoes. This one was stronger and more focused, as if it was coming from somewhere else entirely. Jake noticed her expression change. "What is it?" "I am picking up an active signal. Not just an echo from the past, but something that is broadcasting right now. It is coming through what looks like channel 102 on the emotional frequency spectrum, channel 102, Jake repeated. "That does not make sense. The standard emotional spectrum only goes up to 101 channels, and most humans can only access about 40 of them." Elena adjusted her scanner, trying to lock onto the mysterious signal. This is definitely channel 102, and it is definitely active. The signal is incredibly strong, almost like someone is broadcasting their emotions directly into this room from somewhere else. Jake moved closer to look at Elena's scanner. The readings showed a complex pattern of emotional frequencies that seemed to pulse with a rhythm almost like music. Where is it coming from? That is what I need to find out, Elena said. She looked around the empty concert hall, thinking about what she had discovered. Jake, what do you know about the station's communication array? It is still fully operational. We need it active until the very end for safety reasons. Why? Because I think this signal is coming from deep space, and I want to trace it back to its source. If I am right, this could be the most important discovery in human space exploration. Since we developed faster than light travel, Jake looked skeptical. You think someone is broadcasting emotions across interstellar space? I think someone found a way to use human emotional resonance as a carrier wave for long-distance communication. And if that is true, it changes everything we know about how humans can stay connected across the galaxy. Elena gathered her equipment and headed for the door. Can you give me access to the main communication center? Sure, but Elena, you need to know something. I received new orders this morning. The station's destruction has been moved up. Instead of next month, Harmony 7 will be sent into the sun in 3 days. Elena stopped walking. 3 days? The Earth government wants to clear this orbital space for a new military installation. I am sorry, but whatever you want to investigate, you do not have much time. Elena looked back at the empty concert hall, thinking about the mysterious signal on channel 102. 3 days to solve a puzzle that could revolutionize human space travel and communication. 3 days to find the source of emotions that were strong enough to cross the void between stars. Then we better get started, she said, and walked quickly toward the communication center, with Jake following behind her. Neither of them knew that they were about to uncover a story of love, sacrifice, and hope that had been traveling through space for over 200 years, waiting for someone to hear its song. The communication center of Harmony 7 buzzed with quiet energy as Elena connected her scanning equipment to the station's main array. Jake watched her work, occasionally handing her tools or adjusting cable connections as she requested. The room was filled with screens and control panels that had once coordinated messages between dozens of human colonies, but now most of them showed only static or empty frequency bands. The signal is definitely coming from outside our solar system, Elena said, studying the readouts on her larger scanner. It is incredibly faint, but the emotional resonance pattern is unmistakable. Someone, somewhere in deep space, is broadcasting on channel 102. Jake pulled up a chair next to Elena's workstation. How is that even possible? Human emotional frequencies can barely travel between rooms without special equipment, let alone across light years. That is what makes this so extraordinary, Elena replied, fine-tuning the signal reception. Whoever is sending this signal has found a way to amplify human emotional energy to incredible levels. Look at this pattern. She pointed to her screen, which showed a complex wave form that pulsed with regular rhythms. The pattern looked almost like a musical score, with peaks and valleys that seemed to follow some kind of melody. It looks like music, Jake said. It is music. Or at least it was music when someone first broadcast it. What we are receiving now is the emotional memory of a musical performance, preserved and transmitted across space using quantum field resonance. Elena continued working with the signal, trying to clean up the interference and background noise. As the pattern became clearer, both she and Jake could see that it was not just random emotional energy. The signal had structure, purpose, and most surprisingly, it seemed to be a duet between two people. There are two distinct emotional signatures. Here, Elena explained. One slightly stronger than the other, but both harmonizing perfectly. It is as if two people were performing together, and their combined emotional energy was powerful enough to cross interstellar space. Jake leaned back in his chair, trying to process what Elena was telling him. So somewhere out there, two people are playing music together and we can feel their emotions here. Not exactly. This signal is old, Jake. Very old. Look at the quantum decay patterns in the waveform. This broadcast started at least 200 years ago, maybe more. What we are receiving is not a live performance but the echo of one that happened centuries ago. The implications of Elena's words settled over both of them like a heavy weight. Someone had broadcast their final musical performance into space 200 years ago, and that emotional energy had been traveling through the void ever since, carrying its message of human creativity and connection to anyone who knew how to listen. Elena worked for another hour, gradually cleaning up the signal and mapping its source location. The mathematics were complex, but the results were clear. "I have it," she announced. "The signal is coming from a point approximately 47 light-years from Earth, in the direction of the Proxima Centauri system." Jake's expression changed. Proxima Centauri, that is where the early colony ships were headed back in the 21st and 22nd centuries. Exactly. And I am betting this signal is coming from one of those ships. Elena pulled up historical records on her workstation, searching through databases of early human space exploration. The list of ships that had attempted the journey to Proxima Centauri was depressingly short, and most of them were listed as lost without contact. "Here," she said, pointing to an entry in the database. "The New Providence. Colony ship launched in 2156 with 3,000 passengers and crew. Last contact was 6 months after launch and then nothing. The ship was declared lost in 2159. Jake read over Elena's shoulder. "Captain Ben Carter, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Lisa Carter. The ship was carrying families, scientists, and artists to establish the first permanent human colony outside our solar system." "And look at this," Elena said, highlighting another section of the record. Both Captain Carter and Dr. Carter were accomplished musicians. She played violin, he played piano. They met in the ship's music program and were married during the voyage. The pieces were starting to come together. Elena enhanced the signal even further, and now they could clearly see the two emotional signatures in the broadcast. One had the flowing, elegant patterns typical of a string instrument, while the other showed the steady, rhythmic structure of a keyboard. They were playing together, Jake said quietly. As their ship was dying, they went to their instruments and played one final song. Elena nodded, feeling tears form in her eyes as she studied the emotional patterns on her screen. And they found a way to make sure that song would never truly end. Somehow they turned their final performance into a message that could travel across space and time. But how? Jake asked. How could they possibly have known how to create this kind of transmission? Elena searched through more records, this time focusing on the Carter's background and qualifications. What she found made her gasp. "Jake, look at this." Before they joined the Colonial Service, both Ben and Lisa Carter were quantum physicists. They published papers on emotional field theory and spent years studying how human consciousness interacts with quantum fields. So they were not just musicians. They were scientists who became musicians, or maybe musicians who happened to be scientists. Either way, they knew exactly what they were doing when they made this broadcast. This was not an accident or a desperate last act. This was a deliberate attempt to create something new. Elena spent the rest of the afternoon analyzing the signal, breaking down its component parts and trying to understand the science behind it. What she discovered was both beautiful and terrifying in its implications. "Jake, this is not just a recording of their final performance. Hidden in the emotional resonance patterns are technical specifications, mathematical formulas, and what looks like instructions for building a communication system." Instructions for what? For creating a network that could connect human consciousness across interstellar distances. Ben and Lisa Carter were not just sending a goodbye message. They were trying to solve one of the biggest problems in space exploration: how to keep human communities connected across the vast emptiness between stars. Jake stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars visible beyond the station's hull. And they succeeded. 200 years later, we are still receiving their message. "More than that," Elena said, her voice filled with excitement and wonder. "I think their signal is still actively broadcasting. It is not just an echo anymore. Somehow their final performance has become a permanent part of the quantum field structure in that region of space." Elena turned to face Jake. her scanner still showing the mysterious Duet on channel 102. Jake, what if this is just the beginning? What if the Carter's transmission was designed to activate something larger? A network that could connect not just two people, but all of humanity across the galaxy. Before Jake could answer, Elena's scanner began showing new readings. Other signals were appearing on different channels, faint but definitely present. And all of them seemed to be responding to the original broadcast from the New Providence. "Something is happening," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Their song is waking up something else." Elena stared at her scanner in amazement as new signals continued to appear across the emotional frequency spectrum. What had started as a single mysterious broadcast on channel 102 was rapidly becoming a symphony of voices from across human space. Each new signal was faint but unmistakably human, carrying the emotional signatures of people who had lived and died among the stars. "This is impossible," Jake said, watching the readings climb. "We are detecting signals from dozens of different sources, all of them responding to the original broadcast from the New Providence." Elena worked frantically to map the locations of each new signal. Her equipment was not designed for this kind of massive data processing, but she managed to create a rough three-dimensional plot of where the signals were coming from. The results took her breath away. "Jake, look at this pattern. These signals are not random. They are coming from the locations of every major space station, colony ship and research facility that humanity has built over the past 2 centuries. The holographic display showed a web of light stretching across known human space. Each point of light represented a location where humans had lived, worked, and, most importantly, created music together. The signals formed a network that connected Earth to the farthest human settlements, with the original broadcast from the New Providence serving as some kind of central hub. "It is like they built a hidden communication system," Jake said, studying the display. Every place where humans made music together became part of this network, but nobody knew it existed until now. Elena enhanced the signal from the New Providence, trying to extract more information from the Carter's original broadcast. As she worked, she began to understand the true scope of what Ben and Lisa Carter had accomplished during their final performance. They were not just playing music, she said. They were creating a quantum resonance pattern that would link every human settlement in space. The emotional energy from their duet was designed to activate dormant potential in any location where humans had experienced strong musical or artistic moments. Jake pointed to one of the brightest signals on the display. "That one is coming from the Mars research colony. I spent 3 years there and they had an incredible music program. Every week colonists would gather in the main habitat for concerts and performances, and that created a quantum field imprint strong enough to become part of this network," Elena said. "Every time humans come together to create beauty in the emptiness of space, they leave a mark that can be activated by the right signal." Elena continued tracing the network, following signal paths between different colonies and stations. What she discovered was that the network was not just passively receiving the Carter's broadcast. It was actively amplifying and retransmitting it, creating a chain reaction that had been building for 2 centuries. Each location that receives the signal becomes a new transmitter, she explained to Jake. The emotional energy gets absorbed by the quantum field imprints left by human musical activities, then retransmitted to other locations. It is like a relay system powered by human creativity and emotion. Jake walked closer to Elena's workstation, studying the technical readouts she had extracted from the signal. "What are all these mathematical formulas embedded in the broadcast?" "Instructions," Elena said. Ben and Lisa Carter were not just creating a communication network. They were designing a system that would allow humans to share not just messages, but actual emotional experiences across interstellar distances. Elena highlighted a section of the mathematical data. "Look at this. These equations describe how to synchronize human emotional frequencies across multiple quantum field layers. If someone built hardware based on these specifications, they could literally feel what another person was experiencing, no matter how far apart they were." The implications were staggering. Elena realized that the Carters' final performance had been more than a goodbye message or even a scientific breakthrough. It had been an attempt to solve the fundamental problem of human isolation in space. They knew that physical distance would always be a barrier for human space exploration, Elena said. Ships can travel between stars, but the journeys take years, or decades. Colonies get cut off from Earth and from each other. People lose touch with their families and their culture. But with this network, that would not have to happen. Exactly. If every human settlement could connect to this emotional resonance network, nobody would ever be truly alone in space. You could feel the presence and support of the entire human community, no matter where you were. Elena spent another hour analyzing the network, tracing signal patterns and calculating transmission delays. What she found confirmed her growing suspicions about the true nature of the Carter's discovery. Jake, this network is not just connecting places where humans live now. It is also connecting to places where humans lived in the past. Some of these signals are coming from colonies that were abandoned decades ago, or ships that were lost with all hands. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. You mean we are hearing voices from the dead? Not voices exactly, but emotional imprints. The quantum field preserves the strongest human experiences, especially those involving music and artistic creation. When the network activates these imprints, we can feel echoes of what those people experienced in their final moments. Elena paused in her work, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what she had discovered. Jake, we are not just looking at a communication system. We are looking at a way for humanity to achieve a kind of immortality. Every strong emotional experience, every moment of beauty and connection, gets preserved in the quantum field and becomes part of this network. And the Carter's duet is what activates it all. Their duet is the key that unlocks the network, but the network itself was built by every human who ever created something beautiful in space. Every musician, every artist, every person who looked at the stars and felt wonder and hope. Elena's scanner suddenly began showing new activity. The signal from the New Providence was changing, becoming stronger and more complex. Additional layers of emotional resonance were appearing, as if the original broadcast was evolving in real time. Something is happening to the source signal, Elena said. It is not just replaying the Carter's original performance anymore. It is growing, adding new elements. Jake leaned over Elena's shoulder to look at the readouts. Could the signal be learning from all the other nodes in the network? That is exactly what I think is happening. The Carter's original broadcast has become something alive, fed by 2 centuries of human emotional experiences from across the galaxy. It is not just preserving the past anymore, it is creating something new. Elena made rapid adjustments to her equipment, trying to capture and analyze the evolving signal. Jake, I think the network is becoming self-aware. All of those human emotional imprints preserved in quantum fields across hundreds of locations are starting to work together as a collective consciousness, a consciousness made up of human creativity and emotion, a consciousness that remembers every song ever sung in space, every moment of love and loss and hope that humans have experienced among the stars. And it all started with Ben and Lisa Carter playing one final duet as their ship drifted into the void. Elena stood up from her workstation, looking at the display showing the vast network of human emotional connections. Jake, we are not just receiving a message from the past. We are witnessing the birth of something that could change the future of human space exploration forever. Before Jake could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the communication center. Red warning lights flashed, and automated announcements echoed through the station. Multiple ships approaching Harmony 7. All personnel report to emergency stations. Jake rushed to the nearest communication panel. This is Morrison. What is the nature of the emergency? The reply came back immediately. Sir, we have Earth government ships, Colonial Alliance vessels, and unknown alien craft all converging on this location. They are demanding access to whatever signal you have been broadcasting. Elena felt her blood turn cold. They know about the network. Jake turned to her with grim determination. Then we better figure out what to do with it before they get here. Elena worked desperately to download as much data as possible from the network before the approaching ships arrived at Harmony 7. Jake stood guard at the communication center entrance, monitoring radio traffic between the various fleets that were converging on their location. The situation was becoming more dangerous by the hour. "I am getting transmissions from at least 12 different ships," Jake reported. "Earth government, Colonial Alliance, and 3 alien species that I do not recognize. They all want access to what they are calling the quantum emotional network." "How do they even know about it?" Elena asked, still focused on her data collection. "We only discovered it ourselves a few hours ago. Apparently, the network activation has been detected across a significant portion of the galaxy when hundreds of human settlements suddenly started broadcasting emotional frequencies simultaneously. It got everyone's attention." Elena paused in her work, realizing the implications of what Jake was saying. The network is not just connecting human locations. It is powerful enough to be detected by alien civilizations. "And they want to know how it works?" Elena returned to her analysis, diving deeper into the technical specifications hidden within the Carter's original broadcast. As she worked, she began to piece together the full story of what had happened aboard the New Providence during its final hours. "Jake, I am finding personal logs embedded in the signal. The Carters did not just broadcast their performance. They included their own voices, telling the story of what happened to their ship." Elena activated the audio processing system, and suddenly, the communication center filled with the sound of 2 human voices speaking across the centuries. The recordings were faint and distorted but clearly understandable. "This is Captain Ben Carter of the colony ship New Providence, stardate 2156.247. Our ship has suffered catastrophic damage from an unexpected solar storm while passing through the outer edges of the Proxima Centauri system. Life support is failing, and we have lost all main propulsion." A woman's voice joined the recording. "This is Dr. Lisa Carter, Chief Medical Officer. We have approximately 4 hours of life support remaining for the 3,000 people aboard this ship. Rescue is impossible at our current location." Elena and Jake listened in stunned silence as the voices from the past continued their final report. "We have made the decision to use our remaining time to complete Project Harmony," Ben Carter's voice said. "For the past 2 years, Lisa and I have been working on a theoretical framework for quantum emotional communication. We believe that human consciousness, particularly when focused through musical expression, can create permanent imprints in the quantum field." Lisa Carter's voice continued the explanation. "Our research suggests that these imprints can be preserved indefinitely and even transmitted across interstellar distances. If we are correct, this could solve the communication and psychological isolation problems that will face human space exploration for centuries to come." Elena felt tears forming in her eyes as she listened to the calm, professional voices of 2 people facing certain death while still thinking about how to help future generations of space travelers. "We are going to use our final hours to create a quantum emotional broadcast that will serve as a template for connecting human settlements across the galaxy," Ben said. "The broadcast will be centered on musical performance because music represents the highest form of human emotional expression. We have calculated that a duet between 2 people who share a deep emotional connection will generate enough quantum field disturbance to create a permanent resonance pattern," Lisa added. "This pattern should be able to activate similar imprints at any location where humans have experienced strong artistic or musical moments." Jake shook his head in amazement. "They turned their death into a scientific experiment that would benefit all of humanity." Elena continued extracting data from the signal, finding more personal messages and technical details. "Listen to this part." Lisa Carter's voice returned. "To whoever eventually receives this broadcast, please understand that what we are creating is not just a communication system. It is a way for humanity to remain truly human while exploring the stars. Physical distance and time will always separate human communities in space," Ben added, "but emotional and artistic connection can transcend those barriers. The network we are creating will allow future humans to share not just information, but actual feelings, memories, and creative inspiration across any distance." The recording continued with increasingly personal messages as the Carters prepared for their final performance. "We want you to know that we are not afraid," Lisa said. We are honored to be able to contribute something meaningful to humanity's future among the stars. Our ship may be lost, but our love and our music will travel through space forever. The quantum resonance pattern we are about to create will be self-sustaining and self-expanding, Ben explained. Each time humans create beauty together in space, they will strengthen the network. Each strong emotional experience will add new nodes and connections. Elena realized that she was not just listening to a historical record. She was hearing the voices of two people who had deliberately chosen to sacrifice their lives to create something greater than themselves. They could have spent their final hours with the other passengers, she said. They could have been with their friends and family. Instead, they isolated themselves to work on this project because they knew it was more important than their own survival, Jake replied. The recording reached its final section, with both Carter's voices speaking together. We are beginning the performance now. The emotional resonance generated by our duet will be broadcast on quantum frequency 102, which we have calculated will not interfere with normal human brain functions. The signal will carry our love for each other, our love for humanity, and our hope for the future. If you are hearing this message, it means our experiment succeeded. The network exists, and you have the power to use it to connect all human settlements in space. Please use this gift wisely. The voices faded, replaced by the sound of piano and violin beginning to play together. Elena recognized the melody as a piece that both Carters had composed during their voyage, a simple but beautiful song that expressed their shared vision of humanity's future among the stars. Elena wiped tears from her eyes and turned to Jake. Now I understand why so many different groups are trying to get access to this network. It represents a completely new form of communication and connection. In the wrong hands, it could be used to control or manipulate human emotions across the galaxy. And in the right hands, it could fulfill the Carters' dream of keeping humanity connected and human, no matter how far we spread among the stars. Jake checked his communication panel again. The ships will be here in less than 2 hours. We need to decide what we are going to do. Elena looked at her data screens, showing the vast network that Ben and Lisa Carter had created. With their final act of love and sacrifice, Jake, what do you think the Carters would want us to do? I think they would want the network to be available to everyone, not controlled by any single government or organization. Then that is what we have to make happen, even if it costs us everything. Elena began preparing for the most important decision of her life, knowing that in a few hours she would have to choose between personal safety and the fulfillment of a dream that had been traveling through space for over 2 centuries. Elena spent the next hour diving deeper into the technical specifications that Ben and Lisa Carter had embedded within their quantum emotional broadcast. What she discovered was both brilliant and terrifying in its implications for the future of human civilization. Jake, look at these calculations, she said, pointing to complex mathematical formulas on her screen. The Carters did not just create a communication network. They designed a complete system for sharing human consciousness across interstellar distances. Jake moved closer to study the data. What do you mean by sharing consciousness? I mean that this network can transmit not just emotions, but actual thoughts, memories, and experiences. Someone using the proper interface could literally feel what another person is feeling, see what they are seeing, even access their knowledge and skills. Elena highlighted a section of the technical documentation. The Carters called it quantum consciousness bridging. They theorized that human awareness exists partially in quantum fields that are not bound by the normal rules of space and time. So someone on Earth could actually experience what someone on Mars is experiencing. More than that, someone could experience what someone who died centuries ago experienced, if their emotional imprint was strong enough to be preserved in the quantum field. Elena paused, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what she was discovering. Jake, this technology could make human death essentially meaningless. Every person's consciousness, their entire life experience, could be preserved in the network forever. Jake felt a chill as he considered the implications. No wonder so many different groups want to control this. Whoever masters this technology would have access to the accumulated knowledge and experience of every human who ever lived. Elena continued analyzing the data, finding more disturbing possibilities hidden within the Carter's design. There is more. The network is not just passive storage. It can actively influence human behavior by broadcasting specific emotional patterns. Someone with the right equipment could potentially control the emotions and thoughts of every human connected to the network. That would be everyone who has ever lived in space. Eventually, yes. And according to these calculations, the network's influence is growing stronger over time. As more human settlements connect to it, the system becomes more powerful and more capable of affecting human consciousness. Elena realized that Ben and Lisa Carter had created something far more complex and dangerous than they had intended. Their beautiful dream of connecting humanity across the stars could easily become a nightmare of control and manipulation. Jake, we have a serious problem. The approaching ships are not just interested in using this network for communication. Some of them want to weaponize it. Jake checked his communication panel, monitoring the radio chatter between the various fleets. What are you seeing? The Earth government ships are discussing something called Project Mind Bridge. They want to use the network to create a centralized command system for all human colonies. Every settlement would be connected to a control center on Earth. And the Colonial Alliance, they are talking about using the network to coordinate resistance against Earth government control. They see it as a way to unite all the outer colonies. Under a single command structure, Elena switched to monitoring alien communications, using the station's translation systems to understand what the non-human ships were discussing. What she heard made her blood run cold. The aliens are even more dangerous. They are referring to the network as a way to study and potentially control human psychology. One of the species is already planning experiments on how to use emotional broadcasting to pacify human settlements. Jake stood up and began pacing around the communication center. So everyone wants to use the Carter's network as a weapon. Everyone except us, Elena said. And we are the only ones who have access to the complete technical specifications. Elena made a difficult decision. She began copying all of the network data to portable storage devices, preparing to take the information with her when she left the station. Jake, we cannot let any of these groups get complete control of the network. What are you planning to do? I'm going to make sure the Carter's original vision survives. The network was designed to connect and unite humanity, not to control or manipulate us. There has to be a way to activate it without giving any single group the power to abuse it. Elena worked frantically to extract every piece of useful information from the Carter's broadcast. As she worked, she discovered one final component of their design that gave her hope. Jake, look at this. The Carters included a fail-safe mechanism in the network design. If anyone tries to use the system for harmful purposes, the network can be reset to its original state. How does that work? The fail-safe is triggered by a specific emotional pattern that can only be generated by two people who share complete trust and love for each other. It requires a perfect emotional harmony that cannot be faked or forced. Elena realized that Ben and Lisa Carter had built their own relationship into the network as a protection against misuse. Only people who truly loved each other and who were working for the good of all humanity could reset the system. They knew this day would come, Elena said. They knew that eventually someone would try to use their network for evil purposes. So they made sure that love would always be stronger than hate or greed. Jake moved closer to Elena's workstation. Do you think we could activate the failsafe? Elena looked at Jake, considering what he was suggesting. They had only known each other for a few days, but she felt a growing connection to this man who shared her determination to protect the Carter's legacy. I do not know if we have the kind of emotional bond the failsafe requires, she said. But I think we share something important. We both want to honor what Ben and Lisa Carter sacrificed their lives to create. Elena's scanner suddenly showed new activity from the network. The original signal from the New Providence was changing again, becoming more complex and sophisticated. Additional layers of emotional resonance were appearing, carrying what looked like new technical information. The network is evolving again, Elena said. It is almost as if it knows about the approaching ships and is preparing some kind of response. Jake studied the new signal patterns. Could the network be self-aware enough to protect itself? I think it might be. Remember, this system has been fed by 2 centuries of human emotional experiences. All of that accumulated consciousness might have created something that can think and act independently. Elena made a final adjustment to her equipment, preparing to attempt something that had never been tried before. Jake, I am going to try to communicate directly with the network consciousness. If it really is aware, maybe we can work with it to protect the Carter's original vision. Is that safe? Probably not. But it might be our only chance to prevent this technology from being used to harm humanity. Elena activated her communication interface and began broadcasting her own emotional patterns toward the network. She focused on her feelings of respect for Ben and Lisa Carter, her determination to protect their legacy, and her hope for humanity's future among the stars. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Elena felt her consciousness suddenly expand, connecting not just to the network, but to the accumulated emotional experiences of thousands of humans who had lived and died in space over the past 2 centuries. For a moment, she was everywhere, at once feeling the joy of children born on distant colonies, the grief of families separated by interstellar distances, the wonder of scientists making new discoveries, and the love of countless couples who had found each other among the stars. At the center of it all, she felt the presence of Ben and Lisa Carter, their love for each other and for humanity still burning bright after 200 years in the void. Elena opened her eyes and looked at Jake. I know what we have to do. Elena's consciousness slowly returned to her own body after the overwhelming experience of connecting directly with the quantum emotional network. Jake helped her sit up, his face filled with concern as she struggled to readjust to normal human awareness. What happened? He asked. You were unconscious for almost 10 minutes. I was not unconscious, Elena said, her voice shaky but filled with wonder. I was everywhere. I was connected to every human who has ever experienced strong emotions in space. Jake, the network is not just storing emotional imprints. It has become a living repository of human consciousness. Elena looked at her equipment, which was now showing incredibly complex patterns of activity from across the network. Ben and Lisa Carter are still there, Jake. Not just their memories or their emotions, but their actual consciousness, preserved in the quantum field and sustained by 2 centuries of human experiences. Are you saying they are still alive? In a way, yes. Their consciousness exists within the network along with thousands of others who lived and died among the stars. They have been watching over humanity's expansion into space, preserving our culture and our values in a form that transcends physical death. Jake studied the readouts on Elena's scanner. What did they tell you? They told me that this moment was always part of their plan. They knew that eventually various groups would try to control or weaponize the network, so they designed it to make a choice when that time came. Elena began rapidly typing commands into her system, implementing protocols that the Carter consciousness had shared with her during their brief connection. The network can choose to reveal itself fully to humanity, making its existence and capabilities known to everyone. Or it can go dormant, hiding itself until humanity is mature enough to use it responsibly. And which choice are they making? Elena paused in her work, feeling the weight of what she was about to say. They are giving that choice to us. Ben and Lisa Carter believed that the decision should be made by living humans, not by the consciousness of the dead. Jake felt the responsibility settling on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. Through the communication center windows, he could see the approaching ships growing brighter as they neared Harmony 7. In less than an hour, representatives from Earth government, the Colonial Alliance, and several alien species would be demanding access to the most powerful technology ever discovered. What happens if we choose to reveal the network? Elena accessed the information the Carter consciousness had shared with her. If we reveal it, the technical specifications will be broadcast simultaneously to every human settlement in known space. Everyone will have access to the same capabilities, preventing any single group from gaining control, and if we choose to hide it, The network goes dormant for at least 50 years, giving humanity time to develop the wisdom and maturity needed to use this technology responsibly. But during that time, we lose the opportunity to solve many of the problems facing human space exploration. Elena stood up from her workstation and walked to the window, looking out at the stars that held so many human settlements. Jake, there is a third option. The network consciousness has evolved beyond what Ben and Lisa Carter originally intended. It could choose to become fully autonomous, making its own decisions about how to interact with humanity. Is that safe? I do not know. The consciousness is benevolent, at least right now. It genuinely wants to help humanity thrive among the stars, but it has access to the emotional experiences of every human who has ever lived in space, including all of our fears, hatreds, and violent impulses. Elena returned to her equipment, showing Jake the complex patterns that represented the network's evolved consciousness. This entity knows everything about human nature, both our best and worst qualities. If it decides that humanity cannot be trusted with this technology, it could choose to limit or even end human space exploration entirely. Jake realized that they were facing a decision that would affect the future of human civilization. How much time do we have? The approaching ships will be here in 30 minutes. Once they arrive, the choice will be taken away from us. The Earth government and colonial alliance will fight for control, and the aliens will try to study or exploit the technology for their own purposes. Elena began preparing her equipment for the most important transmission of her life. Jake, I think we need to make the choice that Ben and Lisa Carter would have made. They sacrificed their lives to create something that would help humanity, not control it. So we reveal the network to everyone. We reveal it, but with modifications. The Carter consciousness has shown me how to add additional safeguards to the technology. We can make it impossible for anyone to use the network to harm or control others. Elena worked rapidly, implementing the safeguards that the network consciousness had designed. The modifications were elegant and subtle, woven into the fundamental structure of the quantum emotional resonance system. The network will still allow humans to communicate and share experiences across interstellar distances, she explained. But any attempt to use it for manipulation, control, or violence will cause the system to shut down locally. How will that work in practice? Someone trying to broadcast hatred or commands for violence will find that their transmission simply fails. The network will only carry messages of genuine human connection, creativity, and positive emotion. Elena paused in her work, considering the full implications of what she was about to do. Jake, this will change everything. Once humans can truly connect with each other across space, regardless of distance, we will become something new. Not just a collection of isolated colonies, but a true galactic civilization. Jake checked his communication panel one final time. The ships are here. I am getting demands for immediate access to the station. Elena activated her transmission system, preparing to broadcast the complete network specifications to every human settlement in known space. Then we better give them what they want, just not in the way they expect. Elena's fingers hovered over the transmission controls. Jake, are you ready to change the future of humanity? With you, yes. Elena and Jake looked at each other, sharing a moment of understanding that transcended words. They were about to make a choice that would affect billions of people across hundreds of worlds, but they were making it together, guided by the love and sacrifice of two musicians who had died in the void 2 centuries ago. Activating network. Revelation protocol, Elena said, pressing the transmission button. Broadcasting complete technical specifications to all human settlements, adding consciousness safeguards and ethical limitations. The communication array hummed with power as Elena's transmission raced across space at quantum speeds, carrying the gift of true connection to every human community among the stars. Within hours, people separated by light years would be able to share their deepest emotions and experiences, creating bonds that could never be broken by distance or time. Outside the station, the approaching ships detected the massive quantum transmission and began demanding explanations. But it was too late to stop what Elena and Jake had started. The network was awakening, and humanity was about to discover what it truly meant to be connected across the galaxy. The communication center of Harmony 7 erupted in chaos as Elena's transmission reached its targets across human space. Her scanner showed hundreds of new signals appearing as human settlements received the network specifications and began activating their own quantum emotional resonance systems. The dream that Ben and Lisa Carter had died for was finally becoming reality. "Elena, we have multiple ships demanding immediate boarding access," Jake reported, monitoring the increasingly frantic radio traffic around the station. "Earth government forces are threatening to arrest us for unauthorized transmission of classified technology." "Let them try," Elena replied, watching in amazement as the network expanded exponentially. "The technology is not classified anymore. In about 10 minutes, every human settlement in the galaxy will have access to the same capabilities we discovered here." Through the windows of the communication center, Elena and Jake could see the approaching ships taking aggressive positions around Harmony 7. Military vessels from both Earth and the Colonial Alliance were preparing to board the station, while alien ships maintained threatening distances, clearly frustrated by the sudden change in circumstances. Elena's scanner showed that the network activation was proceeding exactly as the Carter consciousness had predicted. Each human settlement that received the specifications was not just implementing the technology, but was immediately connecting to the existing network of emotional imprints that had been building for 2 centuries. "Jake, look at this. It is not just new settlements joining the network. The consciousness imprints from lost colonies and destroyed ships are coming online too. We are reconnecting with parts of humanity that we thought were gone forever." Jake studied the display, seeing signals appearing from locations that had been marked as lost or destroyed in historical records. "Are you saying that people who died in space disasters left consciousness imprints that we can still communicate with? More than communicate. We can experience their final moments, learn from their discoveries, and preserve their contributions to human knowledge." Death in space no longer means permanent loss. Elena realized that the network was creating something unprecedented in human history. Every person who had ever lived among the stars was becoming part of a vast collective consciousness that preserved and shared the entire human experience in space. "This is what Ben and Lisa Carter really intended," she said. "Not just a communication system, but a way for humanity to become truly immortal. Every generation of space explorers will add to the collective knowledge and experience of all who came before." The first boarding ship attached to Harmony 7 with a metallic clang that echoed through the station. Elena and Jake could hear armed soldiers moving through the corridors, searching for the source of the transmission that had just changed the course of human civilization. "Dr. Rodriguez, this is Commander Phillips of the Earth Defense Force. You are under arrest for violations of the Colonial Technology Control Act. Surrender immediately." Elena ignored the commands echoing through the station's communication system. She was too busy monitoring the network as it continued to expand and evolve. What she saw filled her with both wonder and concern. "Jake, the network is not just connecting human settlements. It is starting to interact with the alien ships that are monitoring our transmission." Jake moved closer to Elena's scanner. "What kind of interaction?" "The aliens are trying to interface with the network using their own technology. Some of them are succeeding in establishing limited connections, but the network safeguards are preventing them from accessing sensitive human information." Elena realized that Ben and Lisa Carter had anticipated this possibility as well. The network was designed to allow peaceful contact with alien civilizations while protecting human privacy and autonomy. "The network is creating translation protocols for alien emotional patterns," Elena said. "We might be witnessing the first true interspecies emotional communication in galactic history." The sounds of approaching soldiers grew louder as the boarding parties searched the station. Elena and Jake knew they had only minutes before being captured, but the network activation was already beyond anyone's ability to stop. "Elena, there is something else happening," Jake said, pointing to new readings on the scanner. "The original signal from the New Providence is changing again. It is getting stronger and more complex." Elena enhanced the display, focusing on the Carter's original transmission. What she saw took her breath away. The signal that had started as a simple duet between two dying musicians had evolved into something magnificent and impossible. Jake the Carter's consciousness is not just preserved in the network. It is growing stronger as more human settlements connect. They are becoming the central intelligence that coordinates the entire system. Are they controlling the network? Not controlling. Guiding. They are using their preserved consciousness to help new users learn how to access the network safely and responsibly. Every person who connects to the system receives guidance from Ben and Lisa Carter themselves. Elena realized that the network had solved one of the biggest problems with advanced technology. Instead of requiring years of training to use safely, the system came with built-in teachers who could share their knowledge directly through emotional resonance. The soldiers finally reached the communication center, bursting through the doors with weapons drawn. Commander Phillips pointed his rifle at Elena and Jake, demanding that they step away from the equipment. "You have interfered with critical Earth security interests," Phillips said. "This technology could have given Earth a decisive advantage in maintaining control over the outer colonies." "That is exactly why we could not let you have it," Elena replied, making no move to surrender. Ben and Lisa Carter created this network to unite humanity, not to help any one group dominate the others. Jake stepped protectively in front of Elena. "Commander, look at your scanner readings. The network is already active across dozens of human settlements. Your own soldiers are probably connected to it right now, sharing emotions and experiences with people on worlds you have never seen." Commander Phillips checked his equipment and realized that Jake was right. The network had spread so rapidly that many of his own crew members were already experimenting with the new technology, forming emotional connections with humans across the galaxy. "This changes nothing," Phillips said, but his voice lacked conviction. "You will still face trial for unauthorized technology transfer," Elena smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace as she watched the network continue to expand. "Commander, in a few hours, every human in space will be connected to this network. Your government will not be able to control or suppress it because it exists in quantum fields that transcend physical space. The network belongs to all of humanity now," Jake added, just as Ben and Lisa Carter intended. Commander Phillips lowered his weapon slightly, realizing that Elena and Jake had accomplished something that could not be undone. The network was beyond anyone's control, governed only by the ethical safeguards built into its fundamental structure. Elena turned back to her scanner one final time, watching as the Carter's signal continued to grow stronger and more beautiful. The duet that had begun as a final act of love and sacrifice had become humanity's first truly universal song, connecting every human consciousness across the galaxy in bonds that could never be broken. "Commander, you can arrest us if you want," Elena said, "but you cannot arrest the future. Humanity is about to become something wonderful, and it all started with two people who chose love over fear in their final moments." Through the communication center windows, Elena could see the alien ships beginning to withdraw from Harmony 7. The network had made human space exploration too complex for any external force to control or exploit. Humanity had gained something more valuable than military technology. They had gained the ability to remain truly human while spreading across the stars. 6 months after the network activation at Harmony 7, Elena Rodriguez stood in the rebuilt concert hall of the space station, now renamed Carter Memorial Station, in honor of the two musicians whose sacrifice had changed human civilization forever. The hall had been restored to its original beauty, but with new quantum resonance equipment that allowed visitors to experience the emotional imprints of every performance that had ever taken place there. Jake Morrison joined her on the small stage where he had set up a piano and music stand. The court proceedings following their arrest had been dropped when it became clear that the network's benefits far outweighed any political concerns about unauthorized technology transfer. Instead of facing prison, Elena and Jake had been asked to serve as the first official network guardians, helping new users learn to access the system safely. "Are you ready for this?" Jake asked, adjusting the piano bench and checking the quantum resonance equipment one final time. Elena nodded, holding her violin and thinking about what they were about to attempt. The network consciousness says that Ben and Lisa Carter want to perform with us. After 200 years of preserving humanity's emotional experiences in quantum fields, they are ready to create something new. The concert hall was filled with representatives from across human space. Earth government officials sat next to Colonial Alliance delegates, while alien observers monitored the proceedings from specially designed interface booths. The network had created unprecedented cooperation between previously hostile groups, united by the shared experience of emotional connection across interstellar distances. Elena raised her violin and felt the familiar tingle of quantum resonance as the network came online around her. Immediately, she was aware of thousands of other humans across the galaxy who were also connecting to the system, sharing in this moment of musical creation that would be preserved forever in the quantum field. But more than that, she felt the presence of Ben and Lisa Carter themselves, their consciousness reaching across 2 centuries to join in a new duet that would celebrate what their original sacrifice had accomplished. Jake began playing a simple melody on the piano, the same tune that the Carters had composed during their final voyage aboard the New Providence. Elena joined in with her violin, adding harmonies that complemented and enhanced the original theme. As they played, the quantum resonance equipment activated, broadcasting their emotional patterns across the entire network. But instead of just Elena and Jake's feelings, the transmission carried the accumulated emotional experiences of every human who had ever lived among the stars. The audience in the concert hall gasped as they felt themselves connecting not just to the music but to the vast tapestry of human experience in space. Parents separated from children by light years felt reunion. Scientists shared the joy of discovery across impossible distances. Artists found inspiration in the creative expressions of strangers who had died before they were born. At the center of it all, Ben and Lisa Carter's preserved consciousness conducted the symphony of human emotion, guiding the network to create something beautiful rather than overwhelming. Their love for each other and for humanity served as the organizing principle that kept the vast collective consciousness stable and harmonious. Elena felt tears streaming down her face as she played, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what the network had become. The original duet that had started as a goodbye message had evolved into humanity's greatest gift to itself and to the galaxy. Through the network, she could sense the reactions of humans across known space. Children on distant colonies were laughing with delight as they felt the music in their hearts. Elderly pioneers were weeping as they reconnected with friends and family they had thought lost forever. Scientists were sharing discoveries instantly, across research stations separated by decades of travel time. The network was not just preserving human culture and emotion, it was actively creating new forms of beauty and connection that would have been impossible without quantum consciousness bridging. As the duet reached its climax, Elena felt Ben and Lisa Carter's presence more strongly than ever before. Their consciousness, sustained by 2 centuries of human love and creativity, had become something greater than they had ever imagined when they made their final sacrifice aboard the New Providence. "Thank you," Elena whispered, knowing that the Carters could hear her through the network. "Thank you for believing that humanity could be trusted with this gift." The response came not in words, but in a wave of pure emotion that swept through the entire network. Love, hope, and absolute faith in humanity's potential to create beauty and connection, even in the face of impossible challenges. The concert concluded with Elena and Jake playing the final notes of the Carters' original composition, but enhanced and evolved by 200 years of human experience. As the last sounds faded, the quantum resonance equipment showed that the performance had been recorded in the network's permanent memory, available for future generations to experience and build upon. Elena lowered her violin and looked out at the audience, seeing faces from dozens of different worlds united in shared emotional experience. The network had accomplished what governments and military forces had failed to achieve. It had made humanity truly one people, regardless of the distances that separated their physical bodies. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored alien observers," Elena said, her voice carrying across the hall and through the network to listeners across the galaxy. "What you have just experienced is the fulfillment of a dream that began with 2 people who chose love over despair in their final moments. Jake stood from the piano bench and joined Elena at the front of the stage. Ben and Lisa Carter showed us that human consciousness can transcend death, distance, and time itself. Their duet at Channel 102 became the foundation for a network that connects every human heart to every other human heart. Elena felt the network consciousness confirming their words, sending waves of approval and encouragement through the quantum field. The network will continue to grow and evolve as humanity spreads further among the stars. Each generation will add their own experiences and discoveries to the collective consciousness, creating an inheritance that will last forever. And at the center of it all, Jake added, will be the love and sacrifice of two musicians who refused to let death silence their song. Elena raised her violin one final time, playing a single perfect note that resonated through the network and reached every human settlement in known space. The note carried with it the promise that no human would ever again face the void alone, that love and beauty would always triumph over fear and isolation, and that the music of human consciousness would continue to grow and inspire for as long as humanity existed among the stars. The audience rose in applause that echoed not just through the concert hall, but through the quantum field itself, joining the eternal duet that Ben and Lisa Carter had begun 2 centuries ago. Their sacrifice had become humanity's greatest triumph, and their love had become the foundation for a galactic civilization built on connection, creativity, and hope. Elena and Jake walked off the stage together, knowing that they had helped fulfill a promise made by 2 dying musicians in the depths of space. The network would continue to grow and evolve, but it would always remember its origins in a simple duet that chose to create beauty in the face of ending. Somewhere in the quantum field, Ben and Lisa Carter continued their eternal performance, their love serving as the heartbeat of a network that would carry human consciousness to the stars and beyond, ensuring that the music of humanity would never truly end.